Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Blacklist. So in this episode, we had Liz going undercover with a group known as the Harem. It's essentially a group of four ladies who basically kind of have a Robin Hood act where they steal, well, not from the rich, but rather steal from other thieves, and they don't really give it to the poor. They just kind of give it to themselves, which to in their defense, it does seem like they do have like a little bit of a slightly moral compass in the sense of like when it came to like that little strip club they were in before, when they're getting information from that dude. He's like, oh, after two things, give us a name and location of how we can track down the list essentially. And then it was like, oh yeah, also shut this place down. So it's like, yeah, you're more like treating women like objects. So it's like they have a moral compass, it seems, to a certain extent. At least Margot does. But basically, this is all about them trying to get a witness protection list, and obviously eventually selling it. But obviously that's not a good thing because it's like all these different people on that list will be in danger once that list goes public. A very interesting thing, like it was just something that was kind of in the back of my mind when they were entering the final stage of their plan, when they were after the Hellbridge, the hacker who actually had the list. When they were like trying to get to him, like legitimately with the sound of the music playing as well as just the setup for the plan and everything, it made me think of the TV show Leverage. I don't know why it seemed, I don't know, for some reason, like I was thinking Leverage that entire time that scene was playing out. It just kind of popped up in the back of my mind. A lot of interesting things about this whole situation. This is like our first time ever really seeing Liz go deep undercover, isn't it? I mean, I think there's been occasions in the past, but like, I don't remember. No, it's come up before, but it's been a while since she's like really gone undercover for a case. So, I kind of felt bad about the guy who brought her in because it was like, yo, they're like, Liz, kill him. And I was like, oh man, Liz is going to have to do it because that was kind of something I wasn't expecting it to pop up in that situation because I remember seeing that from the previous. It's like, oh, will she have to take a life or something like that to kind of keep her cover? And I didn't realize it was going to happen that early in the episode. I didn't realize it was going to be the dude that brought her into the crew. In exchange for a lighter sentence for his brother. And then, Liz, I was like, oh man, Liz is going to have to shoot him, isn't she? But it's like, nope. Liz hands him Margaret to gun back. It's like, oh, this is all about loyalty for you, so I don't have to kill him. And she's like, oh, you got a good head on your shoulder. But still, basically, she's like, this is about the orca, so I'm guessing something that passed between them, and she ended up killing home dude. So that kind of sucked on his part. Essentially, Margot had some kind of connections, so she ended up finding out about his brother getting a lighter deal. So it's like, oh, either he's working with the FBI or you are. So that's why the whole situation turned the way it did. Quick side note, I wanted to include kind of I have to kind of basically do it all the time is the actor things. 3 of the 4 people from the Harem I knew, Margot, Emma, and Sasha. I'm not familiar with the actress who played Jessica, but the other 3 I'm sure of. Like Margot, obviously, like she was in the original Law and Order sometime in the past. I kept looking. I was like, isn't that her? I think that's her. She was like one of the main lawyers, like sometime in the past. Sasha, I couldn't place it at first, but then I saw her name. I'm kind of blanking on it. It might be like Harriet. I could be completely wrong. I saw the name for a second and then it clicked in my head. But the reason why I know her is from Hannibal. She was like one of the main cops in Hannibal. I mean, I'm about to say something, but then I was like, nah, that'd be spoilers for Hannibal to anyone that hasn't seen it. Good show. Interestingly enough, another NBC show. So if you've never seen Hannibal, I highly recommend you go back and do that. I've never saw the 3rd and final season. Like I got up to literally like the 2nd to last episode of season 2, and I never watched anything else of it. So that's something I have to go back to. But nevertheless, and also the actress who played Emma, I've seen her pop up in different stuff before, but I think the most recent thing, I can't think of it. It was some show I saw on BBC America because I started watching it on Netflix like a year or 2 ago. I think it only went up to season 2, so I'm not sure. I forgot what the show was called. It's essentially kind of like a cop show, sort of, but it's set in like one in like the early 1900s or the early 1800s. It was set in the past. So it's not like a modern like crime show, but I can't place it. But she was like one of the main characters in it. So, but like I said, I've seen her in other stuff too. So, but nevertheless, I just my little acting thing, recognizing actors and stuff for it. Nevertheless. Interesting things kind of coinciding with it is we ended up finding out because Emma was very suspicious because there's the whole situation with Liz getting drunk. It's like, oh, what did I say? Was anything embarrassing? It's like, no, it's more revealing. And it's like, whoa, what the hell does that mean? And, Liz is suspicious of it, looks into it. It's like, oh, turns to find out Emma actually works for Reddington. It's like, yo, what's up with that? Ask Reddington the question. He's like, yeah, she's been working for me a while. She's like, she works with MI6. And like, oh, you have connection with MI6? He's like, you didn't really think the FBI was the only agency I had connections with, which is kind of like, I mean, you would assume so because he went through so much trouble, but really his connection with the FBI was only because of Liz. So, but he had to bring stuff to the table because he wanted to be in Liz's life for his reasons. And it's like, he needed to bring something to the table, so the blacklist. And granted, the blacklist is kind of a give and take type of situation. It like allows him to take down his enemies and make a profit from it. Just being the kind of bad criminal, not bad criminal, but like bad guy, criminal person that he is, businessman. So he has to make a profit, but also mainly because of wanting to be around and part of Liz's life. But it's kind of interesting finding out, like, we know he has deep pocket connections to different people. Obviously, the next coming, the president-elect, and for example, just like different people. And now we know, like, oh, he's got connections with MI6 too. Because Emma's actually been working for Reddington for the past 8 years, and he sent her undercover for the Harem, but Emma went dark. And it's like, how do you know Emma won't turn him? And he's like, no, Emma's good. And she's like, well, that's up for me to decide. But Emma and Lizette, she started talking, and it seemed like Emma is necessarily a good person, with the exception that she basically tried to screw them over when she basically took the list and ran. But it's kind of a situation of like, she kind of regrets doing what she did because of the whole thing, who she's become and everything. She's kept a distance from her son, kind of out of shame because she doesn't want to be around her son being the person that she is now. She doesn't really know who or what she is now. And it's like, how could she try and be a big part of her son's life? She even says there's points where it's like, she goes to his games, like, or sees him practice, but she doesn't actually go up to him. She watches from afar in like her car or something. And she's basically telling Liz that, like, you should get away from Reddington. It's like, yeah, you're still in the honeymoon phase of like your relationship with Reddington, where you haven't really witnessed the really bad aspects of working with Reddington, which you could argue is like, no, Liz has seen the bad stuff too, so it's not 100% in the honeymoon phase. Like, as we've seen across the series, her and Reddington's relationship has always been up and down, like, just because new stuff she's on, finding out, most recent thing being the cake day, which is kind of interesting, because I think that's why things kind of went out the way they did at the beginning of the episode. Obviously, he's like, oh, Liz, this is my accountant, Zach, and she's like, okay, so I'm with the FBI. Reddington has this whole deal, so there's no immunity to all crime things he does. But the fact is, you guys, if you do any criminal activity around me, I'm bound to arrest you. So you get out of here if you want, not to be caught up in this. And they all left. And Reddington's like, okay, it looks like somebody like, okay, what's wrong with you? I'm assuming, like, it never really got brought up, but I can only assume it's because of, finding out about the Kate thing, so it made her a little annoyed, but she just kind of, I guess she wasn't going to let on that she knew about that. Maybe it was something else, but it seemed like that was mainly the thing, because it's like she's never really done that before, like, kind of bust up whatever he's doing, so. But kind of getting back to it, it's just kind of like, Emma's like, get out while you're still in the honeymoon phase and stuff like that. And that's why she did what she did, because she wanted to take the list and she was going to run, try to get like sell the list and make a better life for herself. There's also a thing that came up momentarily, like Margot, like, tried to put the moves on Liz, and Liz was like, well, what are you doing? It's like, yo, I'm here for the team and everything, but I don't want part of this. She's like, if you want to be a part of the team, that means loyalty to me. So you're either in or you're out. And luckily, Emma showed up and kind of got her. It's like, is there anything wrong? It's like, get out of here. Like, essentially calling Liz like, little girl, so get out of this kind of grown up business type of thing. And they kind of went into a stall. I'm trying to assume, I don't know whether that's the entire group, whether that's just like something Margot, like, to me, I think it's kind of a power trip type of thing where Margot takes what she wants from people. It's like, oh, you want to prove your loyalty? Then like, not only trust me, I want you to be mine. So I don't know if that's something like Jessica and Sasha had to deal with, but it seems definitely something like that wasn't the first time that's happened with Emma. And even Liz was like, about before, she's like, don't worry about it. She's like, you protected me. It's just like, don't worry about it. So it's not something Emma gladly goes for, but it's just something like she, probably as a way of testing her loyalty, she went along with it. So I'm assuming that's what it is, kind of a power tripping thing where it's like, you're not just on my team, you belong to me. So it's, I didn't see that coming, but like I guess it kind of makes sense why she. I mean, I don't know, because it like for her to go from like taking an interest to Liz and then just going off with Emma like that makes me think that that's what it is. Maybe she was like, oh yeah, I had my fun with Emma, but it's like, oh, I've got someone new to kind of play around with in front of me, like, oh, this new. Because to me, it almost looks like she looks at the team as nothing but disposable. Like, especially later on when it's like, Liz is like, okay, I'm trapped in here and stuff like that. She's like, oh, well, we're all going to split up. It's like, oh, Jessica's dead. Well, we're going to split up and meet back up in 72 hours. It's not trying to help her find a way out. Liz had to find her own way out. I mean, kind of catches up with her later on when her and when Margot and Sasha get arrested. It was kind of like a fend for yourself type of situation. So that's why I'm kind of like, they're nothing more than tools to her. So that's why I think when she saw Liz, she's like, oh, this bright, shiny new quote unquote toy in front of me that I get to play with. So that's how I interpreted it. So, but when it came down to it, Reddington got the list from her because he was like, if you wanted out, all you had to do was ask. And then she was like, I didn't think that was an option, which I guess you could argue you don't. That's the thing with Reddington, you don't know, because it's like Reddington, there's points in Reddington's, like, that's been shown that he's actually a good, caring guy. That a lot of times the reason why he does the things he does is because he legitimately cares about people. But at the same time, it's also that he does a lot of bad things too. I mean, because I think when Emma said that, it kind of coincides with the conversation he has with Liz later on. Her saying that made him think about Kate. No matter how much he pushes it to the side and stuff like that, pretending like it doesn't affect him, what he did to Kate still affects him because he regrets doing that, whether he'll admit it or not. I'm sure if you ask Reddington, he'd be like, I'd have to do it in a heartbeat. She betrayed me and stuff like that. But now, especially because Liz knows what he did and he sees the look of disappointment in her eyes, like he's done some stuff in the past that she's not fond of, but she's looking at him like that, like he's a monster, like he did a terrible thing. I don't think he can live with that. He feels guilty about it. Essentially ended up finding out because because the moment she met with Reddington, she assumes the word. She's like, oh, so you tracked that, you got to Emma before we could, you killed her, didn't you? And it's like, he didn't. Dembe was there, didn't kill her, gave her money and a cabin, a place to kind of start fresh, to get away. So it makes you wonder, like, so much stuff comes up that makes you wonder if this was Reddington before he was the Reddington he is now, because Reddington has changed because of Liz being in his life. And whether you can really see it or not, he has changed. The question is, would he have killed Emma in the past for wanting to leave? I don't know. There must be some situations in the past that's kind of shown that he would, for the fact is that, like, the only reason why Reddington ever kills people that are associates of his is if they kind of screw him over, try to betray him or hurt someone that he cares about. That's what I'm thinking about. But, I don't know. But the Reddington now, like, is he only letting Emma go with no consequences because of what happened with Kate? It's kind of making him rethinking the way he's doing a lot of things. But we ended up finding out the person, like, the reason, because he even said it himself, it was kind of like like a good guy moment where he's like, yeah, you can't sell that list. There's a lot of innocent people would be hurt by you doing that. It turns out one of the people he wants to protect on that list is Kate's sister. Because apparently Kate's sister, just unfortunately, wrong place, wrong time, well, just more particularly wrong time, came out to deal with her dog and ended up witnessing some Russian Bratva people disposing of a body, went into witness protection. Her name is one of those lists. So it's not that he was trying to find her, he just wanted to make sure that no one could find her. And Liz is like, this doesn't make it okay. And he's like, I know. It doesn't make up for what I've done. But he wanted to do something because he had to, like, in some shape or form, he had to have some kind of, retribution for what he did. And, it's like, do some good for what he did to Kate, which I'm surprised still has not popped up where Kate is and what she's doing. Maybe plot. Well, it kind of coincides with which I'll kind of get to it in a second. What we ended up finding out is Reddington was trying to make a deal. Basically, he was trying to buy a cruise ship that's basically borderlining on bankruptcy and try to make a deal to buy it. And all of a sudden, I love his line in this episode being like, "Oh, like I would stand up if I would stand up, but even after all these years, I still get an erection when I'm about to close the deal." I was like, yeah, I just love that he's so blunt with it. But the deal fell through. Someone else bought up the boat. Because basically he was going to use it as to move his products, but then things kind of played out and someone bought it underneath him. He's trying to find his account guy, but there's no way to be found. But it's like, oh, he hears from one of the other guys like, oh, he had a heart attack. It's like, no, he didn't have a heart attack. Somebody killed him. Somebody's trying to start a war. Now, the reason why I'm bringing that up, just after mentioning the Kate thing, is like, maybe it's Kate, because who would know Reddington's operations better than anyone? Like I said, it's got to be Kate getting revenge. I figured that was going to be one of the things that she ended up doing when time kind of, when it came back to it, is because no matter what, like her and Reddington might have had a good relationship. Like that's the thing. I said it back then, and I'm not sure. It could go either way with Kate. Either Kate's going to like go after Reddington hard as retribution for the fact that he tried to kill her, or just let it go. I don't know. That really depends on Kate. Kate was always loyal to Reddington, but the fact is that he tried to kill her, like got rid of, because, Reddington isn't the person that he used to be anymore, because he got Liz and Tom and their daughter mixed up in all of this. And it's like, no, you should have just left them alone. So we'll have to wait to see on that part, but like I just get the feeling it might be that Kate might be coming after. It's got to be someone that knows his operations, not unless it's just someone else. I mean, definitely isn't Kurt coming after him anymore for whatever reason. Whatever it was that Reddington said to him is like Reddington himself said it's like he's not coming back. So not unless it's someone else, but Kate's definitely on my list of people who it possibly could be. And I wasn't really sure how he was going to react once if he found out that Liz knows about the Kate situation, because Dembe was like, like, I'm sorry, Red, but I had to tell Raymond, I had to tell her. He's like, no, I understand. And it's just, you see that somber look on his face. So it's going to be interesting to see how that kind of plays out going forward. And, because it's a situation where it's like Liz has to think about that too, because it's like she doesn't want a life where like Emma's, where it's like she's spending her entire time working with Reddington and it ends up missing time with her child, like being too ashamed, crossing lines. Because that was one thing Emma brought up too. It's like that you start crossing lines and then you eventually have to look back and realize just all the lines you cross and all the bad things that you've done, for the sake of this. It's like makes you think it's for a good cause and a good reason, but then you start making excuses and justifications for doing the things that you're doing. So, it's something that she really has to start it puts it even more in perspective. It's like, because I think there's a part of Liz that does tend to forget, like, Reddington is a bad guy. It's like, but he does good things, so there's a slight justification, not a complete justification, but a slight justification. Once again, the ends justify the means. Like, even though he's kind of profiting from it and doing this whole criminal thing, as long as something good comes out of it, like from the blacklist, then it works out. Like, I mean, for example, they caught the Harem this episode. And they kept the witness protection list from kind of being spread around, so. But we'll just have to really see how they all kind of play out going forward. And the final note I want to make before I end this is I just found out, because I saw a preview for it. Apparently there's a spin-off show called The Blacklist Redemption. Essentially, I saw very little of it. I didn't know what it was. They're like, from the creators of Blacklist, which I think it's weird to put that, especially when it's actually a spin-off from the show. But from what we see, it looks like it's Tom, Susan. It's like, basically focusing on the blacklisters. I guess I don't know, maybe there's going to be new ones, but it seems like it might be treading back on old blacklisters, at least the ones that are probably still alive, and it seems like it might be a series of side stories. It seems like Tom and Susan Hargrave might be the main characters. I don't know. I literally didn't know that was a thing until that popped up. It is coming out February 23rd. So if you didn't see the previews, I'm just like, because you might have watched it online or whatever, just telling you that now. It's very interesting. I don't know what it's going to be and how it's going. I mean, obviously I've seen plenty of TV shows where it's like, they're spin-offs, and they can coexist at the same time. Like I'm just curious to see what the show's really about, as well as how, what's going to be the crossover between it and the blacklist. Will this be stuff that's happening at the same time as the blacklist, where it's a time? I mean, since you have Tom and Susan, it's kind of like, obviously this is kind of taking place at the same time, but these stories, are they going to be like, when Tom's not on the blacklist, he's off on the blacklist, redemption? Because also it's coming on February 23rd. Now I'm wondering, is the blacklist going to be taken? Because it didn't seem like, I try to avoid watching too much of the preview, but I don't know if there's going to be an episode next week. It just said Thursday, so it might be going on a little break, might be taking a week off or something. I don't know, because I feel like roughly around this time is when it kind of takes another break. I might take a little break, come back for a couple episodes. I don't know. I don't know how that's going to all work out I mean, I'm interested to see like how that all plays and how will they affect each other. You know, will it be a situation where it's like, oh, where's Tom? I don't know. Tom's off doing the Blacklist redemption. Or will there be kind of justifications where it's like he has to leave? I mean, no, it can't because he has his own daughter. You know, him and Liz are happy. So it's like not unless some storyline reason comes to justify him like completely leaving. But it seems like it's just going to be kind of a side story type of situation where it's like, I don't know. Like I said, I'm just guessing here. So we'll just have to wait and see. So I just wanted to include that here too. So. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about in this episode. To the next Tell Me Meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.